Hello Redhawks, this is IDTT with another Canvas training tutorial. In this tutorial we will discuss the quizzes option in our course navigation screen. Quizzes can be used to make any sort of assessment, whether it's a short check for knowledge type quiz or a longer end of course type assessment or anything in between. Before we get into the workings of how to use quizzes, something to be aware of: there are currently two different options for quizzes within Canvas. One is what's referred to as classic quizzes, one is referred to as new quizzes. Classic quizzes is the original version of quiz that was used within Canvas. A few years back, Canvas also created a new quiz tool, which they refer to as new quizzes. Both of them are active, both of them work. This video is going to focus on classic quizzes. Currently, Canvas has support for both new and classic quizzes. However, all of their technical support is moving to new quizzes. Classic will still be available to use. However, they will not be supporting it any longer, other than just making sure that it's functional. There will be no new features added. So the recommendation at this point would be that you probably should use new quizzes. However, I do want to go over and cover classic because there may be some scenarios where you need to use classic quizzes. For instance, your department may be using them, so in order to stay on the same page, you might need to use classic as well. So in order to access quizzes, we find the quiz link in our course navigation. And then, as with most things, there's a blue button in the upper right hand corner. We're going to click on the Add Quiz button. This is where it will give us the choice to choose between classic and new. So since we're talking classic, I'm going to choose classic in this situation. And then we will put in the information about the assessment. So this might just be a quiz that I want to put together, so I'm going to name it Quiz 1. I could put some instructions or reminders for students to keep in mind. Remember, within the rich content editor, we can do things like add links. Maybe there's a reference that you want them to be able to access and have. Maybe you want to put a table in with some data they might need. All that could go within the instructions part, what they would see when they open the quiz initially. Quiz type in Classic, you have 4 choices. You can have a practice quiz or a graded quiz. Practice is going to score them so they can see what their grade is, but it's not going to put a grade in the grade book, whereas graded would add that grade to the grade book. And then survey, a graded survey would be you just want to give them points for completing whatever it is. So you might have a survey that's worth, say, 5 points. It would award them those points, or you might just want to collect some feedback from students with no points attached to it. Then you could use an ungraded survey. We're going to go ahead and just go with graded quiz. Our assignment groups, if you watched our assignments video, any groups that you set up. So this is a quiz. Maybe I'll group those in with my tests because I don't have a quiz category set up. Then you have some options. Shuffle answers, so for things like multiple choice, it would rearrange them. You can put a time limit in minutes, however long you would like. If you want to allow more than one attempt, you would check this box, and then it would ask you which score to keep, the highest, the latest, or the average, how many attempts they get. This box is the cause for some confusion sometimes. It can be very helpful, but it can also be a problem. If you want to allow students to see their results along with correct answers potentially. If I check this box, let students see the quiz responses, I would leave that checked. If I don't want them to have access to the quizzes at all for whatever reason, then I would uncheck that. It would just simply tell them at the end, you've completed your quiz, you've completed your assessment, and then that's it. They couldn't see anything unless you opened it specifically for them. You could also, maybe you want to have a setup where you want to let them see what they got right, got wrong, and retest. You could show them after each attempt, or you can set it up to show them only the correct answers at a specific time. So you might have it set up so that it's only open for the first few minutes of class. Sometimes people use that as a monitoring option. so that people don't always have access to that information. So you can show them their correct answers for a window. But again, remember, if you do have this checked, they're still going to be able to see the questions and their incorrect responses. Just this would only show them the correct answers for a short window. You could set it up to show one question at a time, so they have to click next. A lot of students don't prefer that, but there are some reasons you might want to implement that. Sometimes it helps improve focus. Also, if you're worried about students maybe taking information, it's a little more difficult to screenshot or take pictures of one question at a time as it is to a whole entire page. So again, that's personal preference. You could also restrict the quiz in that it requires an access code, so you could give them a password, and then when everybody's ready to take the assessment, you could give them the password, and then they could input it to start. They couldn't start without that password. There's also options to filter IP addresses if you want them to only be able to take it at certain places. And then, as with our assignments, we can assign it to everybody, to an individual person, the due date, when we want this to be available for them to see. So that's kind of the info part. Then to add questions, there's a tab up at the top of the screen. We click on questions. There's a few different ways, which we'll get into in a different video, of how to get all those things set up. But the thing we're going to focus on now is just adding a new question. When you add a new question, it looks very similar to screens we've seen before. We have the rich content editor. We can add in whatever kind of content we want here. Images, maybe there's a clip we want them to watch and talk about. It's going to ask for a question name. However you want to do this, naming convention wise is good. I might just put in, this is the first multiple choice. Maybe I have X number of multiple choice, so many short answers. I might name them that way. And then you see here you have all of your options for your test questions. Most of these are pretty straightforward when it comes to setting them up. We won't go through every single option, but you can see you have a good selection of different types of quiz questions. The one thing with new quizzes is that there are a few more options than even what you see here. So we're going to stick with multiple choice here. We would type our question, and then we can scroll down and we could put in our answer. So we'll just put in some generic answers for our questions. And then we can select which one we want to be correct. If we want to change up the options by clicking the green arrow to the side. So let's say the correct answer here is C. We can also add more if you want to give them more options as well. And then once we're satisfied with how this looks, we would click Update Question, and our first question would show up. If we wanted to add a second question, maybe this time true false works very much the same way. You select which answer is correct. Fill in the blank and fill in multiple blanks allows you to put the question in with the blank and then your potential answers at the bottom. There's options for a multiple answer, so maybe there are multiple things about a question that could be true. You could have that in a drop-down style as well. Matching formulas if you're trying to put together math questions. Essay questions, this would allow them to type directly into Canvas. You might have a situation where maybe you want them to upload a file that they had prepared outside of the test, potentially. That could be an option as well. And then you could just do text. So you might want to do like a subheading, maybe a reminder on directions or something like that. You could put that in, and then that would appear within the test. Once you have all your questions set and everything's ready to go, then you can either, as usual, save, or you can save and publish right away, depending on what you're trying to do. Most of the time, save, if you're building out a course, is probably the way to go. Once we're finished, then we decide we want to save our quiz. It gives us a reminder that it's unpublished. In order for students to be able to see and take the quiz, we would have to click the Publish button. But that's how we put together a classic quiz. As always, if you have any questions, you can contact IDTT. Have a good day.